I was just about to start by saying, and we're back. But I don't know. For me, we're back. I've been filming other episodes. Folks, we are at the Canadian Immigration Hall at the Canadian Immigration Museum at Pier 21 with Christine. Did I get all that right?
You got that all right.
Oh my God, it is a bit of a mouthful. And so we're at the Canadian Immigration Museum at Pier 21, and the Immigration Hall is here. It's one part of it. There's another part over there, and we're going to be doing all sorts of great stuff. Tells the story of all the folks that journeyed here and found new lives in Canada. And as you were telling me earlier when we were just taking the walkthrough, tells the story too of some of the people who might have come here trying to find a new life and were maybe, no thanks, not welcome, can't come in. So it's the full story. It's a wonderful museum. I've already taken a quick look through. So we're just going to go through and hit some of the highlights, but there's so much to see and do here. We can't get it all, which is why I'm going to encourage you at the beginning of the episode, as well as at the end, to come on down and visit, which I always do. So where are we? I kind of said the Canadian Immigration Hall, but what is this? What is this part of the museum, Christine, that we're in now?
So in this part of the museum, we talk about the broader story of immigration to Canada, not just immigration in the years that Pier 21 was active. We're really looking at the time before, during, and after, all the way up to present day. Yeah.
So what years was Pier 21 active, if you were to look at that particular period?
So that particular period was 1928 to 1971. Okay. And when we're looking at that period of immigration, Pier 21 was mostly active in the post-war years. So it's a very small little chapter in a huge history book of Canadian immigration.
Right.
And this exhibit here really focuses on all the other chapters of that history book of Canadian immigration.
So if you're talking Pier 21, those particular years, and somebody comes and says, well, my ancestors came with the Scottish waves of immigration in the 18th century, or the Loyalists. Sorry, wrong museum, unless you come here. And this is covering all of that.
This is the exhibit that I would definitely tell them to come and visit.
Come to this side first.
Yeah, come to this side first. There's so much to see and do, and there's so many stories of immigration to Canada. We can't possibly cover all of them. So the way that we've kind of put together this exhibit is in very basic themes that I think most people can either identify with personally, or if they came as an immigrant to Canada, certainly went through these themes. We have journey, arrival, belonging, and contributions. So everyone that comes to Canada has a journey. Everyone has some kind of arrival. Everyone has an impact, whether positive, negative, we don't know. And everyone has some kind of contribution to Canada.
So through the magic of film and television and time and space and editing and my TARDIS, we are now in the Canadian Immigration Hall. And folks at home, you're going to see, it's not that we don't like each other. We do. We've bonded quickly here. But we're still in the COVID era, which is one of the things that if folks were coming in, say, 1918, 1919, 1920, they would have been coming in a different pandemic era, the Spanish flu, which was as deadly, I think, or even deadlier than, that's kind of a...
Deadlier.
Yeah, although COVID is playing a quick game of catch-up.
That's true.
So, we're still in that era, and it kind of, there's no silver lining to COVID. I would never pretend there is, but it is important to try and remember, and this is what their stories can tell us too. Thinking back to the past, that other people had to live through the kinds of things that we're living through now.
Absolutely.
So as bad as it is, it's not new. We can look to our own ancestors and say, you guys made it through, okay. So by doing all the right things. So we're trying to do the right thing too. So, stay social distance and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So there's all sorts of things in here that tell all sorts of stories. There's one I'm looking at directly over there that is possessions and things that people brought with them. But what are we, in this little alcove, and we can't cover them all, so we're just going to hit this one, maybe one other. What do we have here? If people were to stop right here, what's this going to tell them?
So this activity is in our journey section. And so this is early in that kind of theme area. So we want people to think about, when they're taking this journey to leave their home, what do they take with them? And what do they leave behind? Which sounds, like a pretty innocuous question at first, but when you start to weigh it out, it becomes very, very complicated.
Right.
So we have these foam blocks, and we're asking people to pack their own suitcase. But what we're asking people to do is to think about the proportion of items in their suitcase that would represent things that are from their past, things that they can't forget, parts of who they are, maybe their grandmother's recipe book or a family photo album or a locket, jewelry, things that really connect them to their past, versus how many things they're going to be packing in their suitcase that will prepare them for their new life in Canada. So this act of packing is actually a really important place of where the past and the future kind of come together, where you're preparing for the future but not forgetting your past.
I can bring a camera.
If you want.
I have no pictures of my family. I didn't really like them.
Make new memories.
I will make new memories.
Yeah.
So people would be like, maybe my old memories weren't so great. Maybe there's a reason I'm coming here and it's maybe not a good one. So maybe I'll make new memories.
Yeah.
The most important thing, though, that I think everybody would pack, and if they don't, they're horrible, evil people, would be a teddy bear.
Oh, yeah.
So as I love teddy bears, my wife and I have about 180.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes, I know that's usually the reaction that both of us get. But is there a story with, as the British would say, Mr. Bear?
A little bit, yes. So Pat Marshall came to Canada from the UK after the war. Yeah, there's a little picture of her with the teddy bear, actually. Isn't that lovely?
It warms my cold, evil heart to see something like that.
Apparently, she saw her cousins playing with this teddy bear and throwing it around like a football, and she was heartbroken, so she rushed in and saved this teddy bear. And from that moment on, they were pretty much inseparable. And she brought him with her when they came to Canada. And he was kind of this touchstone of comfort and safety for her as she made this really important journey here. And she kept him all these years. In fact, we have a picture here of her with Teddy and her grandchildren. Yes. And she very lovingly donated Teddy to the museum. And we've even designed education programs with this teddy bear and Mind Teddy Bear's journey, where we talk to little kids about what it's like to come to Canada.
It brings a tear to my eye. Not really, because I am a bit of a cold-hearted person, but it's as close as I'll ever get to having a tear in my eye. It is actually quite moving.
It's very sweet.
First of all, to the relatives that were throwing Mr. Teddy around like a football. I don't know what happened to you, but hopefully you were punished somehow. Secondly, to Pat, what a wonderful story.
Yes.
And look how happy she is with Mr. Teddy. I keep calling it Mr. Teddy. Did Mr. Teddy have a name?
No, Teddy.
Just Teddy.
His name was Teddy, so you got it right the whole time. You just made it more formal by saying Mr.
Well, I'm like the newspapers, Mr. Teddy said. They didn't refer to him as Mr. Teddy, because we don't really know each other, but you seem nice. So there she is. This summarizes every museum to me, especially a museum dealing with immigration, but any museum, frankly, here's the people then, here's where they are now.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you can see her and the teddy bear is still, and now in a museum, it's just an amazing sort of story.
Yeah.
A great, there's sadness to all of these stories in some cases too, but there's always moments of hope and sort of things that travel through time that are touchstones of happiness too.
Absolutely, and I think that's a main theme of the museum. In fact, our main collection is oral histories. So for us, it's that human element. What are those lived experiences? And that's what we really want to share with Canadians, because that's what people connect to, right? And that's how we build empathy and understanding, is through these human experiences.
Many immigrant families kept the menus of their voyage.
Oh.
Food was a big deal on a long ocean voyage.
Grilled fillet of haddock and broiled kippered herrings. Like, oh my gosh, I never want to leave the ship. This is sort of the Pier 21 journey, I guess, that walks us through how people would have arrived here and how they would have gotten here and all that sort of stuff. Blah, blah, blah. We'll get into all of that. But more importantly, this is like a showdown in a Clint Eastwood movie, but not really, because this is an old friend and we haven't seen each other in many, many years, but we both went to grad school together at St. Mary's in the history program. Trick question for you folks at home. Which one of us actually graduated? The answer is Dan Conlon, who is here. He's the curator at Pier 21, and he's going to take us through. Hi, Dan. Great to see you again after all these years.
Hi, Paul. Nice to see you outside of a seminar room.
That's true. That's right. It used to be like, oh, this is all very serious. And now it winds up in different ways. We're both still doing history. You're doing it here at Pier 21 as a curator, and I get to kind of do it goofily in front of a camera visiting museums. So it's sort of interesting how, you know, when you talk about the journey of the immigrants, even throughout our own lives, we have journeys, and then we touch upon people we might have known in the past. So it's all coming home to me, folks. And speaking of coming home, that is one of the hardest segues you will ever see in television history. I once lived in Scotland when I was a student studying history, actually. Tell me about this, Dan. This is where people are going to land when they first come in here to the museum. And they're going to see this big wall here. And I think most people will know Europe over here, North America where you are. But what is this trying to tell folks as they start off their journey through the museum here?
Yeah, well, great talking to you across the breadth of the Atlantic Ocean. And we often think of oceans as things that divide the world, but actually they also connect the world. For centuries, people arrived in what became Canada across oceans. And when Pier 21 opened in 1928, the focus was overwhelmingly on European immigration by the Canadian government. So you had all these big departure ports in Europe, on mainland Europe and places like Scotland, where you spent a bit of time, where the great ocean liner companies of the world made their money by selling tickets to hundreds of thousands of immigrants. And they would make that often stormy crossing of the North Atlantic and then arrive in a variety of Canadian ports of arrival. But Halifax had the great advantage of being the year-round ice-free port.
Right.
Lots of people went to Quebec City and Montreal as well, but in the wintertime it freezes up, and Halifax has this amazing deep water, very big year-round harbor. And it opened as an immigration terminal right after Confederation with another facility, Pier 2, further up the harbor. And then this building opened in 1928, and almost 1 million people came through from Europe through Pier 21 to build new lives in Canada. Welcome to your transatlantic experience.
This is my transatlantic
Yeah.
experience. I like it. So this would be where we might sit and have dinner and they talk about actually, he doesn't look like he's enjoying his meal, but everybody else seems to be having a good time. So dining hall, nice thing about any good museum, folks, you'll find clearly written, but also concise kind of interpretive panels that sort of give you the quick overview of what's happening. And what are all these?
Menus. People kept many immigrant families kept the menus of their voyage.
Oh, okay.
Food was a big deal on a long ocean voyage, and most of the ocean liners made sure their passengers were really well fed. People who came out of like World War II refugee camps, they were presented with these mountains of food, and it was a lifelong memory for them. Shows up in many of our oral history interviews.
Well, you have Jeanette Holm arrived from England as a war bride in 1946, and apropos of Dan's comment, we couldn't believe the food, the white bread and the butter and the milk. And you think, well, white bread, butter, and milk, I can get that wherever I want. Well, during the war years, butter and milk for sure would have been tough. I don't know about bread, but those were probably things that they would have had very little of. And certainly not free-flowing like this menu here implies. Grilled fillet of haddock and broiled kippered herrings instead. Like, oh my gosh, I never want to leave the ship. I'll just keep going back and forth and back and forth.
Not all the meals were grand, but even the simple ones on the photocopied menus, you'll see the food was ample.
Right.
And, we've interviewed immigrants who just still can't stop remembering the amount of eggs they could get when eggs were an unknown quantity in post-war Europe.
I feel the same way when I travel to the United States and go to a Denny's. The big breakfast is really a big breakfast. I can't believe you people eat all this food, but this is amazing. So very cool. You know what's even cooler though? And I could pretend that Dan's, going to sneak one in, but Dan told me and sort of let me know that there's something really interesting here. I love the sort of stuff that you can get right in. I also love my family. And I think family is an important part of the immigrant journey. I don't really know them very well, but I've got my nephews on shoots with me all summer. It's a good chance after 18 years to finally get to know them. I have stationed one of them, Alex. It's Alex, right? Yeah. Perfect. My sister would be very upset if I had gotten that wrong. So Alex is down there. He is on the other end of this. So this is my nephew's first experience in film and television, and we're going to hear the first words of Alex Goff on television coming through the voice tube on this replica ship. It's kind of like something out of Doctor Who. So pretend you're on a TARDIS, Alex, and let her rip.
Aye.
Not bad. I'd like 3 eggs, several sausages, and I have to say the bread's good, but I could use more marmalade. Did you get that?
Yeah, I got it.
The service on this ship is excellent. That's me at the end of every Christmas. Seed them once a year, close them off. So good job, well done. We'll talk next year at the same time, probably the same place. Have you ever been involved in anything that we might find questionable? Political beliefs. I try not to have any anymore. I find it just gets me into trouble. This is the assembly room. And once you've gone through you've come over and this, sitting right up there is going to be an immigration officer who's going to, correct me if I'm wrong, decide whether or not I can come into the country. Now, you were saying earlier that the vast majority of people that came through were pre-cleared in Europe. So most people wouldn't be too concerned about being here. But I'm guessing this would still be a stressful time for some. Tell me a bit about what the experience would have been like here and what they would have gone through.
Yeah, so we have many memories from immigrants of this assembly hall and sitting here nervously waiting for your name to be called, and then you go up with your papers for that interview with the immigration officer. And you know, you've landed in Canadian soil, you've got off the ship, but first you've got to pass through immigration, your health clearance, and then customs, so you're not here yet. There's been lots of overseas clearance done. So if you have all the papers to prove that, and you have also a good case that you have employment waiting for you in Canada, then there's a train waiting for you. But there's that nervous moment where you unfold and spread out that paper and open that passport, and the immigration officer scrutinizes it, and you're just waiting for that landed immigrant stamp to land down. And you know, they'll ask some key questions about how you're feeling today, which sounds innocent, but is very important, and some questions about where you're going, what you're going to work at, and that's a really a key moment, and can be a very stressful one.
When you look at the sign, most of those languages I recognized when I saw them. One I had to read was Ukrainian, but German, Dutch, French, English, and Italian, right?
Polish too.
Or Polish too, right, of course, Polish. Languages you don't see, any languages from Asia. Chinese, Japanese aren't there. No languages from Africa or Spanish. Well, there's no Spanish, so we can write off South America too. So
you're not seeing Arabic, you're not seeing Yiddish.
No, no Yiddish.
So it's a replica of a sign from 1946. Nice gesture, and it captures, you know, this sort of 7 main sort of countries of origin at that point.
Right.
But there's a whole bunch of parts of the world that were being excluded.
So yeah, that's part of our history too, the exclusion of many peoples, which we've moved away from and become a more inclusionary society when it comes to immigration, which is a good thing, which is one of the lessons that you can take out of here too. Let's not ever do that again. So let's keep going in the progressive path that we're moving on. But yeah, this is sort of, I find this, just looking at the pictures that you guys have put on the walls, sort of a very moving experience just to stare like at that group of people there. So the lives that they had ahead of them, no Second World War yet, the Depression had started, but they didn't know how big it was going to be. Everything in front of them in a brand new country, sort of an amazing, amazing journey, which you can see here at the Pier 21 Museum. Thank you very much to my old friend from grad school, uniting again in the forces of history, Dan Conlon, the curator here. Thank you for the tour, Dan. And, well, that's great. You're free to go. I've been told I still have a few questions that I have to answer.
Yeah, well, my pleasure, Paul, but let's see how you would do with arriving with immigration officials.
It depends on who my immigration officer is. I'm willing to roll the dice. It's going to be very friendly. I have nothing to hide. So although I may have flirted with Marxism in my college days in Scotland, so hopefully that question doesn't come up. But I might not answer that one honestly, folks. So I'm sure I'll be fine. Here we go, 3 questions with the immigration officer. Oh no. This just took an interesting turn. Earlier today, folks, I did wander down to the gift shop, and I might have procured a little stuffy here, and I've named him Stuart. And it turns out Stuart is also the immigration officer that I have to deal with. Perfect. So Stuart seems like a lovely bear. I'm sure he's fair and friendly. Go ahead, sir, ask your questions. How many? I have 3 questions for you, sir. Are you prepared to answer those 3 questions? 3. Perfect. So fire on. First question, how are you feeling today? Do you feel healthy, well, or do you have a headache or a cough? Just answer honestly, please. Yeah, no, I feel absolutely fine. I'm in good health. Note to self, don't tell them about the high blood pressure and cholesterol. I have been double vaxxed for COVID. Note to self and to everybody watching, get vaccinated, folks. It's how we get out of this. And yeah, no, I'm completely healthy. So now, welcome to Canada, right? Oh, of course, 2 more questions. Lay it on me. All right, we will accept those answers. Second question, your political affiliation. Have you ever been involved in anything that we might find questionable here in Canada? Political beliefs. I try not to have any anymore. I find it just gets me into trouble. When I was younger, I will admit that I might have flirted with 1980s level Marxism when I was a student in Scotland. It was very brief, and it may or may not have been related to a young lady who was a Marxist. And so my motives were, while not pure, they weren't political. Hopefully that doesn't cause me any trouble. Third and final question. This is a simple one. Do you have employment here in Canada waiting for you? Do I have a job? Well, I work in the film and television industry. So if you're watching this at home, the answer is at the moment, yes, I have a job here in Canada. So hopefully that lets me in. Well, all right, I guess so. I mean, it's not like a real job, but fine. You can come into Canada. Yay, willkommen to me. Thank you very much, Stuart. And thank you very much to Dan and Christine for the wonderful tour through the Pier 21 Museum. It's an absolutely great facility. It's so moving in so many different ways. I love storytelling. That is what history is to me. And the stories that just sort of sing to you through the walls of this place and the pictures and everything that you see are just amazing. And I think I can't recommend this place highly enough. You will not regret coming here. So like the immigrants from all those years ago, you will not regret coming here. So thank you to those folks for giving me this great tour. And we'll see you next time on Maritime Museums.